Well, hello, and welcome to Opal City Confidential, a Starman podcast, episode 55. And it's time to go to Times Past, which means I'm joined by David Steele from the Earth 2 podcast. Yay!
Woo!
Muppet
Woo!
Arms!
Woo! Yeah!
Woo!
Yeah. Hello. Hello, everyone. Welcome back. It's nice to be back. I say this every time. It feels like it's been ages. Probably has. But it's good to be back. Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
I didn't know this one was coming up.
Right.
I mean, because I just recorded, David just listened to it. I recorded it, the previous episode yesterday. This will go up in a couple days, in
Yeah.
about a week after that. But it was like, oh shit, there's a Times Past. Fuck.
Yeah. Because everyone's attention is on the Wesley Dodds story and then the postal story. And everyone's all, you're thinking that Infernal Devices is just around the corner and the Grundy stuff.
It's not.
There's a Times Past in between.
Yeah, and then there's Bobo, the Return of Bobo, which is a great issue.
Yeah.
And then because I'm using the compendium, and I'm assuming it's the same way in the archives, volume 2, that the Shade miniseries comes before Infernal Devices.
Yeah, that's right, because he's away. Because he put up spoilers. We don't want to get too ahead of it. Yeah, I'd forgotten all about the Santa Claus issue.
It's lovely. It's a lovely comic. It's a lovely comic. I wish I could have talked more about it, but there's not. It's just a sweet, simple little story.
Yeah.
It's character builder for the O'Dares, and I love the hope, faith, and charity joke.
Yep. No, it's good. It's necessary to sort of build them up because, and we know how it all plays out. They're all involved a lot more towards the end, but no, it was good. It was a sort of, in many ways, you can imagine if it had been a TV show that maybe whoever played Jack was off filming another episode, so he just did all, they got some scenes with the other cast just to kind of fill it out so that the guy playing Jack would cover it all,
Yeah,
it's a good one.
I think that's a good. It's like when TV series in America used to be 25 episodes, you would have character episodes. So secondary characters would get the spotlight to give everybody else a breather.
Yeah.
Or you need to, I've changed what I'm doing. I need this character to take up something because the fans like this character. Another, for some reason, an actor's quit or, you've gone, this plot line's not working. So we need to move some of that action to another character. So I need to get that character in the right place. So I'm just going to give him 40 minutes. And that's kind of this is you give the O'Dares a spotlight. You get to move that Charity Mason love affair. The two meant to be people. You get to meet Clarence's wife, Faith, who's lovely. And then this sweet little Jack just being a regular DC Silver Age superhero.
Yeah.
Helping some poor guy in a Santa suit get his locket of his family back. It's wonderful.
Yeah. It was really good. It was nice to be reminded of it. I listened to that one as we record. Listened to that about this afternoon whilst I was walking back up the road. Ross is going to be very kind, listeners. He's going to let me share my thoughts and my theories as well on the 2 issues of the Will Payton series that David Knight appeared in.
Well, but before we move on, let's.
I won't keep us long. But
that's cool. We'll do that because, folks, this is what we're going to cover. Is episode issue 28.
Yep.
And we're going to talk about Times Past. And then I'm not going to make David sit here and listen to me talk about the Liars Club, which is Venture Comics 76 and the last Jack Burnley, because I'm going to have thoughts on that I'm going to record later because I want to kind of talk about Jack Burnley, who was in Virginia, who I didn't realize until I was doing some homework. When he quit working in New York, he moved to Virginia. Lived in Charlottesville, where Monticello, where Thomas Jefferson's from, and where I'm a descendant of Jefferson. So, and it's about a 40-minute drive from here. It's weird. A lot of people retired to Charlottesville. So
you'll have to do a road trip episode, like Max and Rich do sometimes on Weird Boreals. You should do that. That'd be funny.
Yeah, I wonder if he's buried there. If he's buried there, I'll go up, man, because it's, I'll go to Monticello. My mom's buried. My mother and her parents and one of my nephews, my family can be buried at Monticello. If I will not be.
Right.
I'm just going to be one of those people here. My ashes go throw them off a mountain. There's a place up here called Skyline Drive. It's Appalachia. So our part of Appalachia is, so I think it's the most beautiful place in the world. So, but he retired there. It was kind of cool. I thought it was cool. But
Yeah,
before we
definitely.
get on to 77, let's hear what you thought about David.
Yeah,
And we have kind of discussed like messaging some things, like we
yeah.
had some theories. So I want to
We
hear
had
your
a
theories and have
couple.
that conversation.
Yeah, we had a couple of back and forth, and it's interesting. I got those issues around about October 1997. Bought them second hand in a shop in Glasgow. It's no longer with us, called Obelisk Books and Comics. I bought them in there, which would place it round about maybe about 6 or 7 months after, probably in the middle of Infernal Devices sort of being published, I think, just to give you the idea of what was going on. So this was the point when I was really, really getting into Starman, because I've been buying it since it started, but didn't start reading it properly till the middle of 1997. But no, I bought these two issues because obviously one of them has someone wearing Ted Knight's costume on the cover, and then there's obviously part two. The main things I wanted to sort of mention was just the contrast between the way they tell David and Ted's story in these two Will Payton issues versus what James and Tony and everyone else did in their series. Now, obviously, the big difference is that there's no mention of Jack. And my postulation is that Jack did not exist at this point. Jack only existed when the timeline started shifting during Zero Hour.
I agree exactly. I think it is the best way to. It works. It just makes sense that all that weirdness created Jack, and when the universe was erased and rewritten, Jack existed. Because Zero
Yeah,
Hour fixed some stuff with. Well, it didn't fix it because they're all dead. They killed them off again.
yeah. In fact, I think one of the main reasons they did it was to try and straighten Hawkman out, but that's a whole other story. The other thing that the other thing I wanted to kind of mention was that the other thing that's really different with what James and Tony did was that in the Will Payton issues, David doesn't know that his dad was Starman,
That it makes no sense.
because there's the whole bit with him washing his hair and shaving off his mustache, and I thought, no way in hell did Ted ever have a mustache. What are you talking about? Um, and that's another thing. Obviously, it was different was because Jack and David grow up in the Robinson continuity, knowing that their dad was Starman. So those are the sort of main things that stuck with me at the time. I mean, and I can remember formulating the theory because this was only 3 years after Zero Hour, and Jack doesn't appear. He appears, I think, in Zero Hour issue 1, literally just as everything's about to collapse.
Yeah, they're him and David are in there, and all the JSAers have been
Yeah,
wounded, and
yeah,
Ted's one of the few that's going to survive.
yeah. Because Rex and Al and Chuck all get killed. The Nelsons get sort of separated and flung away from the helmet and all that sort of stuff. Rex obviously gets rescued 10 years later, in a couple of issues of Justice Society. But we're still waiting on Chuck and Al. But yeah, because there's a scene Ted, I think Wildcat and Sandman are in hospital, or Jay's there as well, and Jack and David walk in, and David does look quite like he's drawn in the Will Payton issues, to be fair.
Yeah, he does.
And Ted hands David the cosmic rod, and Jack says, "Well, good luck, bro. I wouldn't want that gig." And obviously, we all know what happens to David in the first couple of pages of the Zero issue. So those were just the things I sort of kind of wanted to kind of converse on, because I think it's interesting reading it from the perspective of someone. When I read those two issues of the Payton series with David and Ted being mentioned and all the talk of them being written out and stuff, I hadn't read any other issues of Will Payton. I was just reading it as someone that was kind of buying this off the back of enjoying the Jack Knight series, and it's just interesting because you can't help but try and reconcile and figure out why there might be differences. And it just came to me very clear. I thought, well, maybe Jack just didn't. Well, obviously Jack didn't exist because he hadn't been created yet by James, but he just maybe it was this things when things started to shift in Zero Hour. Maybe that's when it all changed and Ted's history changed and elements of the Golden Age miniseries were factored into the continuity, whereas previously it had all been an Elseworld. So yeah, that was just what I wanted to share on that.
I like that. I think that's the best fit for it. Because I am really, you have not read much of the Will Payton, right?
I've read it all. I read it
Oh
all.
yeah. Okay. So okay.
Yeah,
I'm remembering it wrong.
yeah,
I'm
I've read
really
it.
enjoying it. My
Yeah.
next thing to cover is the Red Kryptonite caper, and
Oh
I'm
yeah,
kind
that's a lot of fun.
Yeah, and
sort
I'm
of
going to
fun.
read all of it and just kind of
Yes,
talk about it in one episode.
yeah, it's early days for the Triangle sort of era, sort of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah,
But
it's good.
it's also the
I
end of
hadn't
the
read it before.
Stern era. So I'm
Yeah,
kind of
yeah.
nervous because I am
Well,
such a huge
that's
Stern fan.
yeah. Well, that's the thing. That's where Peter and I disagree. Peter, my co-host on the Earth Two podcast, I hope he's listening. Hi, Peter. We can disagree that my feeling is that once Roger leaves, it goes rapidly downhill. Picks up a little bit towards the end, and I think Peter disagrees. I think Pete's feeling is that it declines a little bit once Roger goes, but not quite as bad as I think it does. So it'll be interesting to see what you think.
I'm gonna give it a fair chance. I'm
Yeah.
not sure who the Dave Hoover is going to fill this gap of issues, and he's okay. He's
Mm-hmm.
not Tom Lyle, but I've always had a soft spot for Tom Lyle's art because he did a run of Robin that I read religiously.
Right. Okay.
Folks, you're hearing my wife and my best friend Victoria text, so I'm going to turn my phone off. That's what that god awful noise is. They're planning a trip up to Maryland to visit, which I
Oh,
appreciate. But let me turn this off while I'm talking.
that's
Um,
cool.
but I'm looking forward to seeing what goes on. Because the only thing
Yeah.
I'd ever read was the Eclipso stuff at the end,
Right.
and
Got
I
you.
do want to get all of that Eclipso stuff because that was an event I really liked.
Yeah, because that's the one. Summer. That was summer '92 when I first started. Well, I was 19 that summer. That was when I decided, right, I'm enjoying this. I'm enjoying because I'd been reading Green Lantern, and I started picking up the Superman titles because of Panic in the Sky, which I think Will might be involved in as well.
Yeah,
I can't remember. I'll need to check. Picked those up, and I was like, I'm enjoying the Superman books, and I'm enjoying this new the reboot. Justice League was kind of given a restart after Jean Marc and Keith had gone, so I was kind of like, right. I started reading Just League America and Just League International at the same time. So it was all kind of going on, and the Eclipso annual crossover that year was being published. There was a couple of the annuals that I read at the time, and I had the bookend issues because I remember the first issue one came with that little miniature plastic diamond.
yeah. I had to buy those, so when I got the Starman stuff, I bought those because I got to use those to cover. I'm
Yeah,
going to film because when I'm done with this, I'm with Will. I'm going to do. Um, I've got some plans
yeah,
for covering other Starmen, and I will share them with David when we're done recording. I don't want to spoil anything, but I do know I have to cover the Scott Snyder Justice League appearances of him. It's a different Will Payton. I kind of
yeah,
went and did a little homework. It's Earth Zero, this new Earth, the Prime Earth, which has
yeah,
its own little continuity, which I like. If you're going to reboot, I like that they're saying that this Earth is not Earth 1, it's not Earth 2, it's separate. It's not an
yeah,
amalgam. And I'm happy with that. It
yeah.
allows us to go, oh good, then you will tell stories in these other universes. They could go back and tell stories in these other
Yeah,
universes.
I remember like I've got all of those JLAs. I wonder if it was you or someone else that told me they weren't very good. Can't remember.
I don't know if they're very good. I just was not, I couldn't get into reading it monthly, and I got them and I
Yeah,
saved them because I don't like I've liked the John's Justice Society. I've got some pacing issues with it and some scheduling issues, but having someone who
yeah,
ran a comic shop for years, I understand it, and there's no reason to bitch about it because it's just gonna fucking happen.
yeah, yeah, totally.
It's out of their control. They have other bit duties. Johns has other partners.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
I'm a big supporter of his new project, Ghost Machine.
hmm
I've
yeah,
liked everything that's come out of it. I like all the creators that he's recruited to be his
yeah,
partners. But there's been this thing since the end of Justice Society with which one did not end on a high note. Did not. I got the last two trades, but the last arc was never collected because they're not good. The Guggenheim stuff is not very good.
I agree. I agree. Yeah,
Um,
it kind of finished with a whimper rather than a bang.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and I don't think anybody knew what they do. So, including John's in Doomsday Clock of how to bring people back, because he was kind of said you're going to bring people back. He brought back what he thought would back, and Schneider brought back who he thought should be. And I
yeah,
don't agree with. I just don't. I just think you bring back your most successful version of it.
yeah,
You don't. You
yeah,
don't. You're not John's Robinson, Goyer, and John's for their sake, they really cemented, I think, the best version of the Justice Society in the modern era.
Yeah, I agree with you. Of course I do. I agree with you. And it's scary to think it's 25 years since that series
I know,
started.
and I was very happy in the latest issue of Justice Society that we got to see Peter Cross, because I like that they brought back the Yolanda and they brought back
Yeah.
Beth Chapel
Yeah.
from the
Yeah.
Eclipse, who died in Eclipso. I like
Yeah.
that.
Yeah. I've been sort of worried about Peter because I'd read a couple of I'd read something the other week that he skimmed through something the other week that he was in. I can't remember what it was now. Let me think. Oh yeah, well it was because I reread the 2 issues of JSA where they rescue Rex Tyler, because I'm doing the comic cover challenge on Instagram this month for the first time in a few years, and for tomorrow's cover the legend, the prompt line is out of time, so I'm using part one of the story where they rescue Rick from in Time Point, and Rex gets rescued from 0 Hour, because the cover line of that is out of time. So my man out of time, I think it is. And Peter Krause is quite involved in that one, because they get they take him and Michael to the time point where Rick is sort of bleeding to death, and Peter rescues him, and Tyler speeds up the healing process, and you're like this, yes.
Yeah.
So I miss Peter Cross. I really liked him in the 2000s. He was really cool. He had that 70s Batman vibe. People used to say that about him. So yes, I'm glad he's not been forgotten. Put it that way.
I like that he's a scientist living in another country. He's his superhero in Brazil.
Yeah,
I like that. And the folks, I cannot recommend, for me, I really cannot recommend the Flash, Jay Garrett Flash comic more. It's everything a comic book should be.
Yeah, it's great fun. It's great fun. We should
All
probably
right.
get to Starman.
Yes, we should. We should. Let's get the pertinent data of this comic from Mike's Amazing World, which will give us the actual publication date. So this is Starman 28. It was cover dated March 1997, was released on January 22nd, 1997. It was $2.25. God, that I even lament a $2 comic. Editor, the amazing Archie Goodwin. The story title is Times Past, 1976, Super Freaks and Backstabbers, which I think is a great title. And the creative team is James Robinson, Craig Hamilton, pencils, Ray Schneider, inker, Bill Oakley, letterer, Gregory A. Wright, colorist. This has been reprinted in the Times Past trade book in 1999. Marvel Omnibus hardcover 2009, Omnibus Volume 2 trade back 2012, and the Starman Compendium Volume 1. I'm using the compendium, and David is using his floppy.
I'm using my yes. Keep it clean. This is a family podcast. Yes,
I'm sorry.
I'm holding my floppy up right now.
HR is being called.
So how old were you in 1976?
When this went 19 I would turn 12 in October of 76.
I turned 3 in 1976. A very famous long hot summer in the UK. A very fond sort of formative memories from it. Yeah, it was a good time. And I was just about a month, 5-6 weeks away from turning 24 when the comic was published.
Wow. So yeah, 97. I'd have been 32.
Yeah.
No, 34. 34.
Right.
No, 32 years old.
Okay.
So, and I was about this time probably playing catch up, because we've talked about this, that we both came to it a little way in.
Yeah.
So I'm going to go over to the fandom wiki, because it's got more of the data, because Mike's Amazing World has not covered a lot of these Starman.
Yep.
They're catching up. Main character is Starman Mikaal Tomas, or I will always call the Disco Starman. Supporting guest Jack Knight and the Shade, because it's always framed by Jack reading the diaries. Komack, who is the villain from first issue special 12. The Tolakians. So wait a minute. When was this? They were not. Were they always? Were they called Tolakians in first issue special?
I can't remember. Pete and I are a little way away from covering it. I reckon we maybe get to it by the end of this year. So I've not read it recently, but my memory is it was published December 75.
Yeah.
Michael's issue. I've got it. I mean, I bought again. That's another one I would have bought. Should probably run about 1997, run at the same time that I probably bought the issues of the Will series that that David was in, because Michael was such a big part of the Robinson series. It's that Joe Cooper cover, which is a beast. First issue specials. I mean, you've covered it when you were running parallel with Danger Street. It's really interesting. I mean, I haven't read Danger Street yet, so I'm going to avoid spoilers. But stuff like, the way that they all just did these first issues, and then it was like, right, none of them got picked up. I think Warlord was the only one that got picked up. None of the rest of them got picked up.
And I think the last one was just a tryout before they brought New Gods, because it's basically New God Zero. It's the issue that goes between 16 and 17, the last Kirby and the first Jerry Conway one.
Yeah. And it's what's slightly irritating about the first issue special one is just the Michael one is just that, it ends on that cliffhanger that's never resolved. It's like Lady Cop does the same. Did she ever find out who killed her friend? Don't tell me if they tell you in Danger Street, because I want to read Danger Street and find out.
Don't remember if they do or not. I know, because he really takes oh shit.
What's wrong?
Oh, nothing. Hold on.
Okay.
I got that warning 10 minutes. So no, right. I don't think it does, because I think in Danger Street he uses them as he ignores what's ever happened. He's really only worried about, I'm taking these characters based on what happened, and just to insert them as it's a device. Right. And that's why I liked it, because he's just using them. And people were going, well, you're writing them not the way they would have been written. He's like, yeah, he's writing them as they would if he put them in this situation. He's put them into a situation and they're reacting to it. So but no, you're right. And they weren't. I just went and did a real quick look, and they were not Tilakians. They're called you got them all. Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway,
you'll enjoy it. You'll enjoy it.
I'm sure I will. So they're
called the Travidians, and I think it's a retro that they're Tilakian. Right. And folks, if you have no idea what we're talking about, go read a Legion comic.
yeah, go read some Legion. Read any Legion, or else even better, go back to the beginning of Ross's My Legion Adventure, and he'll read it for you.
Yeah. Especially when you get to the Action Comics issues, and which will be a slog. So, but I've got to read some more. I wish, sometimes it's painful to read Legion, because I don't find there'll be a chance of another good Legion, because they've screwed it up so badly. So let's get started. Let's talk about the very groovy cover.
I've got a memory of complaining that it's printed too darkly.
You thought it was too dark?
Yeah, I think it's printed too darkly. I'm sure I read that somewhere. I think it's lightened up in the trades.
Show me your cover. Let me see, because you're. Yeah, it is. It's toned down. Yeah. The red, the fuchsia up at the top by the stars is a little lighter.
Yeah, listeners, you heard that. Ross asked me to show him my floppy. Sorry.
But it's got since it's set in 1976, I love that the lava lamp is predominant in the screen, in the cover.
You know what? I've literally just today noticed. Literally before we started talking about it, I'd never noticed that Michael getting the syringes, sort of being threatened with the syringes in the bottom right hand corner before. I'd never registered that. Isn't that shocking that they put the syringes?
I didn't either until I flipped through it a little while ago after I read it this morning. I was like, oh, he gets a jab, because at the end, we'll talk about the ending, folks. But the needles are important toward the story. Yeah, it's really a giveaway on the cover.
Yeah, I mean, it's crazy. I've owned this comic for nearly 30 years and I've never noticed.
I hadn't either. I
think it's so dark. It's kind of, you don't really pick out the detailing. It's only today when I was looking at it closely.
They may have darkened it for that reason, to show a syringe on a comic book. Is this comic code approved still? Yes.
Yeah.
So, but there's no synopsis to read in either of the things. But basically, it's 1976. Michael is not acting as a superhero. He's living in clubs, doing drugs. We get a whole bit about he's looking for a dealer.
Yeah.
And then his old arch enemy, Komack, appears.
Mm-hmm.
He's dying of herpes.
Yeah. This is the
very
thing.
Very specific. Yeah.
it's obviously it's that whole thing about how the 70s was, I was obviously far too young to worry about such things. And probably Paisley, I'm sure, was not the center of it all. 70s a promiscuous time. Free love and all that sort of thing. The me decade, I believe they call it, and it's got all this stuff about how Michael has, he's enjoying himself fully. Let's put it that way.
Yeah,
He's
yeah,
he's not taking names. He's just enjoying himself, and it turns out that herpes, which is what his arch rival here is caught, is fatal.
yeah. And I like that because in Komack says he says it's not like other diseases. And I think what it is I think Robinson was like, I do not want to equate this with AIDS.
Sure.
I don't want
Yeah.
it to be an AIDS story. I want it to be
Yeah.
a promiscuity thing that
Yeah.
these men have both, because if you find out that his planet was destroyed by a dark star
Yeah. Yeah.
because they had tried to invade the Daxamites, fucking bad idea.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
All that
then
stuff was
then
there.
they blew up a planet one of the main dark stars liked. Dark stars
Yeah.
guys were this more gritty Green Lantern kind of
Yeah.
thing that they
Yeah. They
did
were
in the
around.
90s.
Yeah, they were around for a while in the 90s. John Stewart was a member for a while. Donna Troy was a member, but
Yeah,
I can't
when they
think
wanted
of
to give heroes that had former affiliations to other things their own identity, and it's okay. It's nothing. It was nothing great. It wasn't something I read regularly. I only read it if it tied into Titans, really.
Sure. Yeah, I've got a
Um,
few. I've got a few issues. I've got one. I've got one a couple that Wally West were in, a couple that the Hawks were in, two or three others. The one they've got the 0 Hour crossover. I've got the Final Night crossover. I think that sort of stuff.
yeah. Um, but this all takes place in a discotheque. He's waiting around to hook up for some drugs.
Yeah, and it's his.
Michael is and his memory is shoddy
Yeah,
because he's so addled by the drugs. And
yeah,
Cormac asks him to do something. Take this drug. It does
yeah,
this to our people, and we'll have a battle, one
yeah,
final battle inside our minds, and the
yeah,
winner gets to walk away, and the other does not.
yeah. It reminds me of that fill-in issue of X-Men when Professor X, the kind of flashback to his origin,
Yeah.
has the battle on the psychic plane with the other guy, and then you see the bug
Yeah, 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 yeah.
guy.
And I'm not remembering his name, but he's really the first mutant.
Yeah,
He's tied to Apocalypse.
yeah,
He's a great villain. He's a great
yeah. I
villain.
want I want to say, I think it's when the kids are the X-Men are making their way back from the South Pole. So I
Yeah.
want to say around about 116, around about
It's while
120.
he's grieving. He's
Yeah,
traveling the world and he's back in Egypt and he's
yeah,
grieving and he's remembering the first time he
yeah.
met Storm when she was a
Yeah,
child.
that's
She
right.
picked his pocket.
Fix his pocket. Yeah, that's a brilliant. That's I remember that really clearly. So yeah,
Yeah.
that's what it reminded me of. But interesting. We should mention that Michael has sort of got to this sort of druggy lifestyle because he finds that it kind of the drugs give him the same buzz that fighting and the brief little burst of superheroics that he had sort of gave him. But he finds that the drugs just do it for him as well because there's a nice on page 9, beautifully rendered by Craig Hamilton. We see him sort of remembering and encounters he had with the Alan Scott Green Lantern and with the Martian Manhunter. And those are stories that I've always wanted to see told. But we don't have to see them being told. It's nice enough to imagine them ourselves. But obviously, Alan would have been. This is probably a period before Hal Jordan was active in this particular continuity. Martian Manhunter had been around since the 50s in
Yeah,
this
because
particular.
now they wouldn't have been, if this is 97, the DC rule was 10 years earlier. So
Yeah, exactly.
Superman didn't
Yeah,
first appear now until 87. So
yeah,
and John was always around
yeah,
earlier than the other heroes, just in disguise.
yeah, yeah. So Alan obviously would, because there's stuff about as we know, because we've done other times past when Alan and Rex and Jay and all that have still been around and active. So it's I love the idea of an unpublished story of Michael meeting Green Lantern and Green Lantern maybe wondering who he is, or John sort of wondering, right, this guy's, he's obviously not from around these parts. So yeah, they basically, to coin a phrase, they let battle commence, and it's
It's
great.
actually beautiful. I mean, it's beautifully
It's
drawn.
stunning.
It's got some of that what I like is they have that long conversation where it's a lot of exposition, but it's beautifully drawn.
Yeah,
And they agree. And it's when Komack says, anyway, there is a disease that comes from such love, the current disease, herpes. not lethal, but incurable to those on Meridian, which he could, what they call Earth,
Yeah.
but deadly to our off-worldly systems. I'm dying, Michael. And then they have this whole conversation about it, where Michael agrees to do it. And Michael doesn't remember his Komack. He doesn't
Yeah.
remember. He's like, he's
Yeah.
not really sure about a lot of stuff because he's been high.
Yeah. He's off his face basically. Um, and it's really interesting to think about. Like, I can imagine now it being quite an interesting series to sort of. I wouldn't want anyone else but James to do it, to be honest. It'd be really interesting to get a full series of, like, telling what happened to Michael in the 70s and how he went from where he was to where he ends up in this story.
And what happens between the end of this story and where he's found in the circus.
Exactly, because yeah, Jack mentions that at the end that obviously he was at the circus from a certain point. So there's a whole big long gap when he doesn't know
Yeah.
what happened to him.
Yeah.
I mean, once they start fighting, there's a beautiful. I think it's pages 14 and 15, a brilliant 2-page spread. It's just stunning. This is
Is
just
that the one where it's just the two figures and it says "Let's boogie"?
yeah.
Yeah, that's what I was going to get to. I love that that one. The only text on that page is "Let's boogie," and they're fighting.
Holding the pages up for the benefit of our YouTube viewers. It's gorgeous stuff. Beautifully coloured as well. I mean, I imagine the black and white line work is amazing as well, but it just looks.
And
It
it's
looks.
the choice
Yeah.
of colors are so good because it's a lot of. I mean, it changes from, and it's all 2-page spreads.
Yeah.
It really is, even though there are multiple panels on one or two of the pages, but you really have to be looking at them
Yeah.
together. It's
Yeah.
designed to pull your sight.
Yeah. Because I'm reading in the issue, and of course, like, one of them's interrupted with an advertisement for the Arnold Schwarzenegger movie Eraser, and for the fact that John Byrne was taking on the Jack Kirby Fourth World stuff at this point.
Okay,
Um,
so
you're
then I'm
right. I mean,
lucky.
it all looks glorious. Pages 19 and 20 is what just when you get the sense that their astral bodies, because that's basically what they are kind of hovering over the clubbers and other dancers, and
Yeah, they're flying. They fly through the ceiling. And then they're over, and they're in Opal.
yeah.
And they're flying over the bridge, and um, and Starman wins. And then when he flies back down into his body, Komack's dead, and he notices that the amulet he's been wearing is now fused to his chest,
Yeah, that's
which
the
gets him
difference.
to the where he was when Harry, because in the
Yeah,
first issue special, it's an amulet.
yeah, yeah,
And
yeah.
then he walks away.
Uh-huh.
Think about it. And then he's kidnapped by somebody, injecting him with a drug. And then we get to see Shade writing in the journal and Jack reading it, probably getting pizza all over it.
Yeah, yeah. So let's quickly point out that the Bernie's Monster Pizza 1734 Wrightson Boulevard is the address on the pizza box. But before that, let's jump back to page 23. And Ross, take a look at some of the signage where Michael's walking. Because you can see,
Ditko Street, Kaluta Tea Room, La
yeah,
Bump. I love that.
Marshall Rogers, P. Craig Russell gets a mention.
Steranko.
A big poster that says the Spirit of 76 Bicentennial Celebration.
See, I remember that because there is a bicentennial logo.
Yep.
It was a
There's
big deal. It was a huge deal in this country.
Yeah. Well, because what I'm planning to do for the duration of us covering 1976 on the Earth 2 podcast, I'm going to change the Facebook cover photograph to, a bunch of bicentennial cover line logos, sort of things. Similar to what I've got just
Oh
now.
shit, that thing was stamped on everything, man. We're lucky
Yeah.
we weren't tattooed with it as kids.
Yeah.
But I do like. I want to kind of read the end part where Shade is writing. He goes,
Yeah.
the new buds form on the trees of 1977, and the blue-skinned lad whom many knew as Starman vanished 7 months ago. 7 months gone.
Yep.
There was much I would have asked him too, if Jay Garrett hadn't been such an amusement. Yes, indeed, Matt. What is that? I can barely read this with these glasses on. Yes, indeed. Mac would have much I would have asked.
Yeah.
If I'd had the chance. He vanished in 76, yet Bliss Freaks claimed Michael joined them in 1988. So what was his fate? What was his life for those 12 years? The end. And I like
Yeah,
that
that
times
sort
past are just these little
of,
bubbles. You
it's
know what I
worth pointing.
mean?
Yeah, it's worth pointing out as well because this will become significant much later on. Pay attention to the fact that the shade here calls the Golden Age Flash Jay Garrett.
Oh, he does.
Bear that in mind, listeners. I think it's a
Wait a
mistake.
minute. Hold on a second.
Yeah,
No,
it's
does
obviously a
it.
mistake, but
It's
they call it
Garrick. It's
Jack.
Garrick.
Oh,
It's just that the lettering is so tight. I read it lit like it was a T, and I should know
no, it is a
better.
T. It is a T.
It's not in the compendium.
Really, they fixed it.
Yep, they fixed it.
Well, it's Jay
They
Garrett.
fixed it. They looks like they fixed it by just adding a little leg. Because
I didn't dig that.
I think that's all they did.
I don't have. I've only got volume 2 of the compendium. I don't have volume 1. I'll still need, I need to have a look next time in a store. I mean, I remember like when certain things transpire in the way it plays out. I think they explain that by saying that maybe how can I put it? Maybe the Shade didn't have full control of his faculties at that point. So I shall say no more, listeners. If you haven't read Starman, the Robinson Starman before, and you're reading along with Ross, I don't want to spoil it.
Yeah. Well, we'll find out. We get a good history lesson and some of the inserted history coming up in the Shade miniseries, which will be in
Very
a few weeks. Yeah,
Yeah.
will be in a month or two. But I really like this one. This was I forgot. I think I haven't reread it in so long. Some of these are kind of fresh again.
Sure.
So it's really fresh, and it was just such a it's not there's a lot of verbiage. It's Robinson, but he's really hit that nice balance of what is flower necessarily flowery because he wants to set a tone.
And there's
it's a
there's
really
some
good
fun
story
stuff.
for Michael. I
There's
like
some fun
Michael.
stuff, like they make a reference to Teddy Pendergrass, the singer with Harold Melvin and the Blue Notes. And I don't know enough of the music at the time, but I'm sure that a lot of Michael's thoughts to himself are kind of
the
lines
average
from
white band. Yeah, that's I can't.
and stuff.
Yeah,
James liked to do that sort of showing off sometimes. The one I always remember is when can't remember if you've covered it or not, when Jack's talking, I think he's talking to Sadie about buying something in a shop, and the guy in the shop tells him how much it costs, and Jack mutters, "Oh, money's too tight to mention." And Jack reports that the guy in the shop said, "Oh yeah, Simply Red." And Jack gets to be a bit of a music snob and say, "Simply Red, damn English band, it's the Valentine Brothers or whoever it is." And I remember reading that and going, "Yeah, you like to show off, James. That's not Jack showing off. That's you."
Oh yeah. Well, he does know his pop culture,
Oh yeah,
I think that's why he wrote. I mean, I think that's why
it.
Jack is one of us. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
He's that nerd.
yeah.
I don't think we've gotten to that because I've been scanning ahead, and Sadie is starting to. She becomes more important very soon.
Yeah,
because annual 2 is this huge.
Yeah,
huge
I think
for Sadie.
I think it might be an annual 2, which is I'd like to I'd quite like to come on for that one if we.
I was going to definitely invite you for that one because it is it is such a momentous that moment.
Yeah,
and there's a big moment in it which really has probably the most important effect on Jack's life.
Yeah,
of anything else in this whole series.
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff in that one that we do need to talk about. Yeah.
And now that I've read enough other material.
Yes. Yes.
That the information means so much more to me as a reader.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, when I it was I know what you're saying. When I read that stuff that you're alluding to for the first time, I was reading it through the filter of having read and lived with Jack stuff for decades and knowing it very well. So it was very interesting reading that other stuff that you're talking about and getting that kind of reverse sort of context in a way, Yeah.
Because Sadie is such an important character in this comic.
Yeah.
She is, and she's such a great character.
Part of me wishes that I had read it with having read all of the other stuff. I wonder what it would have been like to have.
I think it would have blown my mind because when we get to it, we'll discuss that because there's some stuff that made me go, oh, because I thumbed ahead and went, ooh, it's coming up.
Yeah.
Not super soon, but in a few months. So
Yeah.
overall, what did you think of this one as the time's passed?
I like it a lot. I mean, it's one of these things. I felt that I would have liked if they'd maybe given Michael a couple more. Um, I like it because it's Jack's found him at the circus. He's involved in the sins of the, was it not sins of the father?
Yeah, send to the
Yeah, that
child.
was sins
Send
of
to the
the
child.
the one that runs through issues like 13 through 16,
Yeah,
17. That one,
that sends to the child.
Sin of the child, yeah, and Solomon. So he's not really had much to do for a
Yeah,
while.
Solomon's coming up. He's big in
Yeah,
so the
yeah,
Solomon Grundy arc, which is a really fun arc.
yeah. Michael hasn't had too much to do for a while, so I'm glad that James has finally decided to sort of turn the spotlight on him. He's kind of working his way through, because we've had one. I think the one with the Mist and Ted, the first Joust one, that was a good one. So it's nice that James is starting to explore the other Sandmen, other Starmen, and yeah, frankly, I love the page that shows Alan Scott and Martian Manhunter. I love that.
I did too.
That's so cool. It's
Uh,
just your imagination is just fired by it, and I love the visuals. Craig Hamilton's a brilliant artist. Um, it's it's a feast for the eyes, like so much of this book. It really, really is. It's gorgeous, and I like the way it ends because Jack wonders what happens for the next 12 years, and they don't really come back to it. And to this day, we still don't really know. I know that, and Michael, Michael does obviously is involved for the rest of the series. James used him in the Justice League. He became pals with Congo Bill. He rocks up in the 12 issues Shade series that was published during the New 52 era. He does pop up again, but it's nice that he finally got a ton in the spotlight.
Yeah, he did. I do wish he did more. I know he's in the 80-page giant coming up. Every Starman gets his own
Yeah,
story. Because we've got some other next times past his will.
that's right.
It is
That's
the
going to
only
be
will time pass, and there's a reason it comes right before annual 2.
yes, exactly.
So maybe we'll do those 2 issues together.
Yeah, that'd be good. That'd be good.
Yeah, because they really tie together.
Yeah.
But there's a bit in there. There's infernal devices, and then there's the Solomon Grundy storyline, which I think is one of the great DC team ups.
Yeah,
You got the Floronic Man, Solomon Grundy, Michaels, Jack,
and Batman. Yeah,
Batman, and Sentinel. Ugh.
yeah, yeah.
Ugh.
I remember. I was reminded actually when I was walking into town today and listening to your episode when you're talking about Steve Yoel or Yoel, however you pronounce it.
Yeah, I didn't know. I was guessing.
I got him to sign. I got him to because he draws one of the issues of the Grundy sort of.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
I got him to sign one of those that he worked on at a Mart. It must have been quite soon after it came out. There's one panel of Ted sort of flying into the rescue. Spoilers, and I got him to sign the initial that for me. When would that have been? 98 probably.
Yeah,
something like that. It would have been. So yeah. Anyway, right, I should probably bog off and let you go on with the Ted Star story that you're going to do now.
Thank you for coming on.
It was a pleasure.
Yeah, because folks, next up is the last Jack Burnley Starman. No, but folks, if you haven't gotten them, the 2 archives are worth if you can find them, and they're not that expensive. But they are 2 totally different comic books.
Absolutely.
Yeah, but they're both beautiful. So
I look forward to you reading through them and seeing what you think.
I think
listeners, check out the Earth 2 podcast. At the time of recording, Ross's next appearance, I think, will be in about a fortnight, just over 2 weeks, as his return appearance as Jay Garrick, the Golden Age Flash.
I hope it. I know there was one line David really liked. It came out perfect first take. Did you warn Peter about that?
I was telling him because Pete and I recorded the framework last week, and I was saying, there was one line that when we did it that I hope that we just fell about laughing the way you delivered it. So it was, I can't wait.
It was the most the least Gage Garrick delivery I could have had, but it was perfect for the comic. And it's one of my favorite, folks. It's one of my favorite. It was one of those first comics I ever read, and it's 113. It's that wonderful 100-page comics. I would love for them to do a 100-page comic archive.
Oh.
You can do
Oh,
4 or
the comic.
5 of them. That
Yeah.
adds in
Oh,
everything. I want everything.
letters pages, puzzle pages, feature pages. That'd be amazing. That'd
Yeah.
be really
Yeah, that's some really good stuff.
in the mind.
So do you have anything to recommend before you shuffle off?
Well, recently I and prompted by some reading that I had to do for the other two podcasts, I've recently read and been utterly thrilled by Jack Kirby's Omac from the 70s, the One Man Army Corps. Loved it, and unconditionally. It was one of the best, most exciting comics I've read in years. I've just read the collection of Joe Simon and Joe Grandinetti's Prez for the first time as well, also his podcast Homework. And I'm currently reading Archie Goodwin and Walt Simonson's Manhunter as podcast homework. So, listeners, if you haven't read them, I would check them out. If you're enjoying the sort of stuff that Ross talks about here and the sort of stuff that Peter and I talk about, you'll definitely enjoy all of
Yeah.
these series.
Yeah.
I
If
would
you
check
haven't
them
read
out.
that Manhunter, it is probably the best Manhunter comic
It's excellent.
ever.
Really
Yeah. And I love
perfect.
some of the modern iterations. I really like the female Manhunter from the
Yeah,
night.
I remember you talking about that quite recently. You mentioned the Kate Spencer one. Yeah, because you were
Yeah, she,
telling me she was in Event Leviathan, which is why I bought it when it was
yeah.
reduced. Shop that Peter works in.
My phone goes crazy. All right. Oh,
Oh,
good God. All right. Thanks again, David. It's always
pleasure.
good to have you on it.
See you soon, mate. All
All
best.
right. All right. Well, thanks, David. It was great having David back to talk Times Past and a Michael story. So, but let me jump in and do the second half or the last third of this episode, which is about Adventure Comics 76 and the Starman story in it. So let's get to the pertinent data. This comic was cover dated July 1942, was released approximately on May 27, 1942, had 64 pages, all for a dime, edited by the amazing Murray Boltinoff. The name of this Starman, let's do the cover real quick. It's a Jack Kirby Sandman and Sandy cover. It's a beautiful covers. Sandman has been the cover character for the last few issues. This is called The Case of the Sinister Sun. There is no title banner anywhere in this, but that is what it is in Mike's Amazing World, which is a great thing. Gardner Fox writer, artist Jack Burnley. This was reprinted in the Golden Age Archives Volume 1 hardcover, which is where I'm reading it. It's the only place it's been reprinted. Doris again, Woodley Allen. The villains are the Sun, the Moon, Mercury, Comet, and Saturn. They are all part of the Sinister Sun's gang. The story was not originally titled. Okay, that's a little note. The synopsis is a shorty, but a sweet one. A group of crooks, the Moroni gang, have stolen weapons from the laboratory of a professor. These advanced weapons have special abilities which further the crimes of the gang. They take on the identities of the Sun, Moon, Comet, Mercury, and Saturn, which have attributes similar to their new devices. Starman finds the gang, but is quickly captured in a prison. His gravity rod runs out of power, but he is recharged during an eclipse, allowing him to defeat the gang. This is the last Jack Burnley issue, because the next issue we get a new artist, Emil Gershwin, and I'm looking forward to it. And I will move on to that in Archive Volume 2. I will say this is one I've liked. I really like this one. It had, it's just a gang members in weird costumes with weird powers. It's very 1940s. Burnley's art again is stunning. It's just absolutely beautiful. The gang's costumes are ridiculous and silly, but I like them. It has a rocket ship, a very 1940s Buck Rogers, Flash Gordon kind of rocket. We get to see him at a planetarium. We get to see Ted at a planetarium with Doris and talking about an upcoming eclipse. And we just had an eclipse a few weeks ago, which I got to see. It was partial here in Richmond, and I had a few minutes to go look at it. It was very amazing. But, you get to see Starman fighting these guys. They've got rays. He gets overpowered, and he gets his cosmic rod is taken from him. He's out of power, but he's left in a cell with a deck of playing cards so he can play solitaire. So they've left him something to do using the So what is it? What is he using? Playing cards with cellulose in their structure make a good explosive when packed tight. So he has a match, he has a trash can, and he has a. He uses the playing cards to create a bomb and blowhole in a steel door. He grabs, and that's when he gets his cosmic Rybat, and I like that. But he stops them all, outwitting him because he's super smart and he's a great hero. And he gets outside, and there's enough nighttime radiation, whatever radiation from the stars. The sun's a star to do it, and he captures them. And it's just one of these quick. It's an 11-page story, beautifully drawn. Some of the best Golden Age comics drawn I've ever seen. And I just think these are fun ones. I mean, they're very repetitive, but they're well structured. You're reading 11-page stories in one of these comics for a dime. They're great. They're great entertainment for a little kid. I was just pulling out I took a break and paused before in editing. I wanted to double check something. I'm incorrect. 77, 78, 79, and 80 all have Jack Burnley art. I was mistaken. The archives, the quality or the way they reprinted in Archive 1 and Archive 2 is different. They're more a photostat, like a photograph of the art, and it's fine. It's great. It's looking. But Jack Burnley does do 77, and it's a missed story. Ross, you should know better. Do your homework. And then Mort Menskin does a couple issues, and then Emil Gershwin takes over. So we're moving from Archive 1 to Archive 2, which is fine because it's more stuff. And I've only read one or two of these, and specifically that one with the mist, just to kind of get a grasp on some stuff. But they've been fun. But these are great Golden Age stories. These, and I've said some Golden Age stories are harder to read than others, and it can be tricky because you're reading art written and stories written in when people have different sensibilities, and it's a simpler time is one thing, but these were fun stories, and they're entertaining, and they're kind of like a nice little thing to go when I'm talking about something maybe a little heavier or a little more modern, when I'm talking about Jack's adventures. And I'm reading other things. I've been reading a lot of Jack, and I've started to read the Captain America solo stuff from Tales of Suspense, and I'm having some of these same issues. Like I've gotten to the point to where it starts to be a World War II story, and Stan and Jack try to write it like a World War II comic, and it's kind of simple, and they're really just kind of telling it in an old-fashioned way. The first couple, I've only read the first two of those, but there is that thing about Golden Age comics, and I'm not saying all Golden Age comics are bad. I'm just saying I really have to put on my way back glasses when reading them sometimes, but I don't have to do that as much with Starman. Well, that's it for this week. I'm not going to say what's going to be the next episode because I'm doing this a little bit in advance. I'm going to not cover, for sure, I'm not going to cover the next Will Payton story. I'm going to talk about Roger Stern's run on it, and I want to do a little more homework, so I might have a fill-in and do the first Starman Film Club and cover the Japanese Starman movies from the 50s and 60s. But I haven't decided yet. It all depends on how much homework I can get. I'm going back to work after a week off, and I'm going to be very busy, and there's a lot going on family-wise and stuff like that. So I'm trying to get a bunch of episodes in if I have to take a little break. So on Thursday, hopefully, you will get my take on Superboy and the Legion of Superheroes 198 and 199. And kind of a refresher on 197 since I've already covered it, since it was my first Legion comic for sure. And then I've got other things in the plan. We're going to discuss Tom Collar. I'm going to have a guest on for that. The 100th episode of the main Stop Let's Team Up. I know I've done more than 100 episodes. I will have a legacy number on that a little bit too. I want to kind of figure out how many episodes I've really done, so I can see where I really am. But I'm thinking about what that's going to be, and that'll be out in a couple weeks or a few weeks, a minimum 3 weeks from now. So, hey, until then, folks, thank you for listening. Thanks for following. Thanks for everything. Thanks for interacting on the interwebs with me when I'm reading because I mostly just post you what I'm reading, and I've gotten a lot of I'm getting a lot more followers on Threads, a lot more interactions on Threads. So thank you for people following me there, and on Blue Sky, and on Twitter. I'm not going to call it X. Elon can kiss my skinny white butt. And stuff, and other social media, Instagram. So please check that out. Please check out Gallifrey's Most Wanted. I just dropped one where we did the third Christopher Eccleston box set. Next up is I have a guest for Cy Hart, a great Doctor Who podcaster, and we'll be covering Smith and Jones, the first Martha Jones episode. So that's something to look forward to. And there's new Doctor Who starting in about 3 weeks, so that's great. All right, folks. So until next time you tune in, be safe, be smart, be kind to one another. It's a crazy, wacky world out there, and read some comics.